My 23F boyfriend, 25M, of 5 months is convinced my dog has behavioral issues. Living with my best friend as my roommate has always been a comforting arrangement. We've shared everything, laughs, tears, and now, the responsibility of caring for my dog, Galahad. Life had been going well until the summer when everything took a drastic turn. It all started with 2 significant events that shook the foundation of my family. My stepfather abruptly left us just 2 days before my half-brother's 16th birthday, and one of our family's beloved dogs became gravely ill. The house I shared with my roommate was supposed to be my sanctuary, but with everything happening back home, I knew I had to step in to support my family. So, I moved back to help take care of the dog and offer some stability to my brother during what was an incredibly turbulent time. Sadly, our sick dog had to be put down, a loss that hit all of us hard. As if that wasn't enough, my mother was forced to find a new place to live because she couldn't afford to stay in the old house on her salary alone. She found a new house, one that seemed perfect in every way except for one glaring issue: the landlord didn't allow pets. The idea of giving up our remaining dog, Galahad, was unbearable. He was family, and after losing one dog already, the thought of losing another was too much to bear. After talking it over with my roommate and getting her approval, I decided to bring Galahad back to live with me. Galahad, a 7-year-old dachshund, quickly became the light in my life. We became inseparable, with him following me everywhere. My roommate adored him too, and we often joked about him being our child. Galahad had this way of charming everyone he met, everyone except for my boyfriend, that is. My boyfriend had never been particularly fond of Galahad. He wasn't openly hostile, but there was a clear lack of warmth whenever he interacted with my dog. I assumed it was because he was more of a cat person. He had 2 cats of his own at his place, so I didn't let it bother me too much. But things came to a head last weekend when I excitedly told my boyfriend about the dog Halloween party I was planning to attend with Galahad and my roommate. We had dressed up as medieval maidens, and Galahad was going to be a knight. It was supposed to be fun and light-hearted, but instead, it turned into a confrontation I hadn't seen coming. My boyfriend completely freaked out, claiming that Galahad had behavioral problems and shouldn't be around other dogs or people. I was stunned. Galahad had always been well-behaved, friendly, and never showed any signs of aggression. I couldn't understand where this was coming from. My boyfriend continued to rant, listing all the things he found wrong with Galahad, and ending with the suggestion that I needed to send Galahad back to my family. According to my boyfriend, Galahad had several issues. For instance, when Galahad wanted attention, he would lick your foot or leg, just once, and then wait for a response. If you told him no, he wouldn't do it again. Another issue was that Galahad would bark a couple of times when someone new entered the house. It wasn't aggressive barking, more like a "hello, I see you" kind of bark. And then there was the fact that Galahad liked to be watched while he ate, a habit that developed after we had to put the other dog down. It was my way of ensuring he ate properly because he had lost weight after the loss of his companion. My boyfriend was relentless in his complaints, even criticizing that I allowed Galahad to sleep on my bed, albeit on a special blanket. When my boyfriend stayed over, I would put Galahad in his crate, but one night, he insisted that the crate be moved to another room. Galahad hated it, cried for half an hour, and only settled down when I brought the crate back into my room. To me, these behaviors seemed normal, or at least manageable. Galahad was just being himself, and while I acknowledged that not everyone might find his quirks endearing, they weren't deal-breakers in my eyes. But my boyfriend saw it differently. He accused me of being too obsessed with Galahad and insisted that the only solution was to get rid of him. When I refused, he gave me an ultimatum: him or the dog. Our communication since that blow-up had been minimal, and I found myself caught between wanting to smooth things over and being furious at the unfairness of his demand. My roommate was livid when she found out, and she had no qualms about making her feelings known. She couldn't understand how my boyfriend could expect me to just give up on Galahad, especially after everything we had been through. I didn't want to lose my boyfriend, but I also couldn't imagine life without Galahad. I considered whether dog training might help, but I didn't have the money for a personal trainer. In the end, I decided that enrolling Galahad in a training class might be a good compromise. I planned to tell my boyfriend about this on Halloween, hoping it would help mend things between us. But things didn't go as planned. On Halloween morning, I texted my boyfriend, telling him I wanted to come over and talk, either before or after the dog party. He didn't respond. So, I went to the party with my roommate and Galahad. We had a great time. Galahad loved being around the other dogs, and seeing him so happy lifted my spirits. But as we were heading back home, my boyfriend finally called, asking me to come over so we could talk. I told him I needed to drop off my roommate and Galahad first, and he just hung up on me. When I arrived at his apartment, I could tell he was angry. He immediately asked why I hadn't gotten rid of Galahad yet. I explained that I wasn't going to give up my dog, but that I had decided to enroll him in training classes to address the behaviors my boyfriend found problematic. That wasn't good enough for him. The argument escalated, with neither of us willing to budge. In the end, we broke up. I was heartbroken when I got home. My roommate could tell I had been crying, and she immediately pulled out a couple of bottles of wine. We spent the night watching old movies and making fun of my ex-boyfriend, whom she dubbed a medieval dickweed. Her humor and support were exactly what I needed to lift my spirits. In the days that followed, I started to come to terms with the breakup. It was painful, but I knew I had made the right choice. Galahad was more than just a pet, he was family, and I couldn't betray that bond for someone who didn't understand or respect it. I had chosen to prioritize the love and companionship Galahad gave me, and I wasn't going to regret that decision. A week after the breakup, my ex-boyfriend showed up at my door unexpectedly. He came bearing a box of dog treats, though they were meant for a much larger dog than Galahad. Still, it was a sweet gesture, and for a moment, I thought maybe we could work things out. We made small talk for a few minutes, and then he apologized, saying he missed me and wanted to get back together. Despite my tough exterior, I had to admit I still had feelings for him, and I wasn't immune to the idea of reconciliation. He suggested that we could compromise, spend time at his place where Galahad wasn't around, and when he came to my house, Galahad could stay in a different room. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was something. I told him I needed time to think about it, that I wasn't ready to jump back into things just yet. That's when everything changed. His demeanor shifted in an instant. He became angry, demanding to know why I couldn't just accept his apology and move on. He accused me of sabotaging the relationship on purpose, and then, when he saw I was about to cry, he lashed out even more, accusing me of being manipulative. My roommate, hearing the commotion, entered the room, and that seemed to be his cue to leave. Without another word, he stormed out of the apartment. That was the moment I knew there was no going back. His outburst confirmed what I had been suspecting all along. Our relationship wasn't built on mutual respect, and I couldn't stay with someone who treated me, or my dog, that way. I blocked him on all social media except Instagram, where I continued to post pictures of Galahad, partly out of pettiness, but mostly because it made me happy. In the meantime, I focused on helping Galahad adjust to our new life together. I started training him to eat on his own without needing me to sit by his side, and while it was a slow process, we were making progress. Every small victory felt like a step forward, not just for Galahad, but for me as well. I realized that I was stronger than I had given myself credit for. The breakup, though painful, had taught me a lot about myself, about what I was willing to stand for, and what I wasn't. I had learned that love, whether it's for a person or a pet, meant standing by those you care about, even when it's difficult. As I watched Galahad thrive in his training, I knew I had made the right choice. I was proud of the life I was building, and I knew that the future, whatever it held, would be brighter because I had stayed true to myself and to the ones I loved. As the days turned into weeks, the sting of the breakup began to fade, and I found myself settling into a new routine with Galahad. My life had shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated, but it was a change I welcomed. The initial pain of ending things with my ex-boyfriend was replaced by a sense of clarity and empowerment. I was living for myself, and for Galahad, and that realization brought a new kind of peace. Galahad's training was progressing, albeit slowly. The routine of sitting with him while he ate had been hard to break, but little by little, he was becoming more independent. I started feeding him in different rooms, gradually increasing the distance between us until he was comfortable eating on his own. It wasn't easy. There were days when he would whine and refuse to eat unless I was right there with him. But I knew this was important, not just for him, but for me too. I needed to prove to myself that I could help Galahad adjust, that I could be the strong, capable person he needed. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, I noticed that Galahad was sitting by his bowl, eating without looking up to see if I was there. It was a small victory, but it filled me with pride. He was adjusting, and so was I. Our bond had grown even stronger, and the love I had for him deepened with each passing day. He had become my rock, my constant in a world that had felt so uncertain just a few months before. Work had become a welcome distraction, and I threw myself into it with renewed energy. My coworkers noticed the change in me, commenting on how much more focused and determined I seemed. I hadn't realized how much my relationship had weighed on me until it was over. Now, I felt lighter, more in control of my own destiny. I started taking on new projects, pushing myself to achieve more, and it paid off. My boss noticed my hard work and hinted at a possible promotion, something that had seemed out of reach just a few months ago. Outside of work, my social life flourished. My roommate and I grew even closer, if that was possible. We spent more time together, going out for dinners, taking weekend trips, and of course, planning more outings with Galahad. Our little household felt more harmonious than ever, and I cherished the friendship we shared. It was a bond that had only strengthened in the face of adversity, and I knew I could rely on her no matter what life threw at us. We even started hosting small gatherings at our place, something we hadn't done much of before. Friends would come over, and Galahad, ever the charmer, would make the rounds, winning over everyone who visited. It became a joke among our friends that Galahad was the true host of any party, with his wagging tail and friendly demeanor. It was heartwarming to see how much joy he brought not just to me, but to everyone around us. During one of these gatherings, a friend brought along her own dog, a playful golden retriever named Max. I was a little nervous at first, unsure of how Galahad would react to sharing his space with another dog, but my worries were quickly dispelled. Galahad and Max hit it off immediately, chasing each other around the living room and playing tug-of-war with a squeaky toy. Seeing Galahad so happy and social reassured me that I had made the right decisions for both of us. He was thriving, and that meant everything to me. It wasn't long after that gathering that I received the news about the promotion. My hard work had paid off, and I was offered a new role with more responsibility and, of course, a nice raise. It was exactly what I needed to solidify this new chapter in my life. The extra income meant I could afford more for Galahad, better food, more toys, and even some professional training sessions to supplement the classes I had enrolled him in. With the promotion came a change in my schedule, but I made sure to prioritize time with Galahad. Our evening walks became a sacred ritual, a time for both of us to unwind after the day. Those walks, once just a part of my routine, became something I looked forward to. We would explore different neighborhoods, visit the local dog park, or sometimes just stroll around our block, enjoying the quiet and the fresh air. It was during these walks that I found myself reflecting on how much my life had changed, and how grateful I was for the direction it had taken. Of course, life wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when I felt a pang of loneliness, especially in the evenings when the apartment was quiet, and the memories of my past relationship would creep in. But each time, I reminded myself of why I had made the choices I did. I had chosen to prioritize my own happiness and well-being, and I wasn't going to let the past dictate my future. Besides, I had Galahad, whose presence filled the apartment with warmth and love. One evening, as I was scrolling through social media, I came across a post from my ex-boyfriend. It was a picture of him with a new dog, a large, fluffy breed that looked nothing like Galahad. The caption was something generic about new beginnings and companionship. For a moment, I felt a pang of something, jealousy, maybe, or regret, but it passed quickly. I realized that I wasn't sad or angry anymore. If anything, I felt a sense of closure. We had both moved on, and that was okay. Instead of dwelling on it, I focused on the life I was building. I had learned so much about myself in the past few months, about my resilience, my capacity for love, and my ability to make tough decisions when it mattered most. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was strong enough to face them, and I had Galahad by my side, a reminder of the love and joy that life could bring, even in the most unexpected ways. As the year drew to a close, I found myself looking forward to the future with a sense of optimism that I hadn't felt in a long time. The new year would bring new opportunities, new adventures, and I was ready for all of it. I had built a life that I was proud of, a life that was filled with love, friendship, and the unconditional companionship of a little dog who had become my world. The holiday season was approaching, and my roommate and I decided to host a small Christmas party for our close friends. It was a chance to celebrate the end of a tumultuous year and to welcome the new one with open arms. We decorated the apartment with twinkling lights and garlands, and of course, Galahad had his own little Christmas sweater. As we prepared for the party, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment. This was what happiness looked like, a cozy home filled with people and pets I loved. The party was a success, filled with laughter, good food, and the warmth of friendship. Galahad was the star of the evening, as usual, charming everyone with his festive sweater and playful antics. As I watched him interact with our friends, I realized how much he had grown since coming to live with me. He was more confident, more social, and above all, he was happy. And that made me happy too. Later that night, after everyone had left and the apartment was quiet again, I sat on the couch with Galahad curled up beside me. I stroked his fur, thinking about how far we had come. Life had thrown us some curveballs, but we had faced them together, and we had come out stronger on the other side. As I looked at the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I was ready for it. I had created a life that was full of love and joy, a life that I was proud of, and I was excited to see where it would take me next. With Galahad by my side, I knew that whatever challenges or adventures came our way, we would face them together. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. As the warmth of the Christmas party faded into the quiet of the night, I sat on the couch with Galahad, the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights reflecting in his eyes. He looked up at me with that familiar, trusting gaze, his small body curled against mine, and I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. This little dog, who had come into my life during a time of upheaval, had become so much more than just a pet. He was my companion, my confidant, the one constant in a world that had often felt unpredictable. I thought back to the moment I had decided to bring Galahad home, how uncertain everything had seemed back then. I had been worried about how he would adjust, how I would manage the responsibilities that came with caring for him on my own. But now, months later, those worries felt so distant. Galahad had not only adjusted, he had thrived, and in many ways, so had I. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been tears, doubts, and moments when I wondered if I was doing the right thing. But every challenge had only strengthened the bond between us. Galahad had taught me so much about patience, about unconditional love, and about the importance of being true to myself, even when it was difficult. In caring for him, I had learned to care for myself in ways I never had before. The clock on the wall chimed softly, signaling the end of another hour, and I realized just how late it had gotten. The party had ended hours ago, but I wasn't ready to let go of the tranquility that had settled over the apartment. I looked down at Galahad, who had dozed off, his little chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. I couldn't help but smile. In that moment, everything felt right. I carefully stood up, cradling Galahad in my arms, and carried him to the bedroom. I gently placed him on his special blanket at the foot of the bed, where he immediately curled up and resumed his peaceful sleep. I got into bed, feeling the weight of the day finally catch up with me, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a day well spent with the people and creatures who matter most. As I lay there, my thoughts drifted to the future. There were still so many unknowns, so many possibilities, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried. I had learned that life had a way of working itself out, as long as I stayed true to myself and to those I loved. Whatever came next, I knew I was ready. The new year was just around the corner, and with it, the promise of new beginnings. I was filled with a sense of anticipation, eager to see what the next chapter would bring. But for now, as I drifted off to sleep with Galahad by my side, I was content to simply be in this moment, grateful for everything that had led me to this place of peace and happiness. In the quiet of the night, with the gentle sound of Galahad's breathing filling the room, I knew that no matter what challenges or joys lay ahead, we would face them together. And that, more than anything, made me feel ready for whatever the future had in store. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment and follow for more stories.